What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying up a little waxworm. This is one of my favorite baits for ice fishing. Once the Great Lakes here freeze over and I can't fish for steelhead anymore, I pull out the good old ice fishing gear and ice fish until springtime. So I'm going to tie up this little waxworm. It's kind of a waxworm caddis hybrid, but it catches panfish. So if you're into pan fishing, definitely give this a go, and I guarantee you'll get in some fish. So I'm gonna get a fresh hook in the vise and we'll get going with this tutorial. So the hook we have in the vise right now is a Partridge Czech Nymph hook. This is the fine wire and this is a size 12. The bead we have on here is a FlyFiend slotted tungsten bead. This is a 3.5 millimeter and it's a black nickel, and as you can see, it's offset there. With these flies, I like to fish them as a jig, so this offset bead will actually help flip this fly upside down, and so I can fish it parallel like a jig. I have about 15 to 20 wraps of lead-free round wire, and this is in 0.015. Definitely recommend getting that lead-free stuff if you are adding additional weight. We're going to be using two threads. One is a 100 denier GSP. This is going to be for the base layer, and the other thread is going to be a UTC 70 denier in black. So I'm going to start my thread right at the base of that lead-free wire. I can come in and cut this little tag out. And all I'm using this thread for is to create the underbody. You can use all kinds of different colors. I've used red, chartreuse, orange. This is just the more than natural kind of white color you see the waxworms looking like. So I'm just going to kind of build up this under base. Just like so. Now for our body material, we're going to be using some Kileys Nymph skin. This is a natural latex color. So I'm just going to get about a 6-inch piece out of the pack here. And the easiest way I find to tie this in is cut the end on an angle, just like so. So when you start wrapping, it's a little bit easier to start overlapping those wraps up the body. And it's just a little bit easier to tie in than a square piece. So right now I'm kind of just trying to get this little piece all flat. Then I can bring my thread up to behind the bead. I'm just going to throw two little whip finishes in there just so it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm going to grab my nymph skin material. All I'm going to do is start making about overlapping half wraps up this body. And I have a moderate pressure on this nymph skin. So I'm just creating a nice segmented body. And I'm kind of overlapping it about half on the last wrap. So you can see that the GSP is showing through the body, so that's definitely important to think about if you are wanting more of a natural looking waxworm. Black also looks really good, but my favorite is just the natural color. So I'm going to bring this up to the back of the bead, tie it off, Then just throw a nice little whip finish in there. Cut this thread out. And you can actually just fish this right now if you want. But I like to add a little bit of legs. Just adds a little bit more lifelike look to it. So I'm going to start this black 70D. Just make some wraps there. Bring it back about a bead's length behind the back of that bead. Now we're going to tie in our legs. And for our legs, we're going to be using some pheasant tail. This right here is dyed black. And I'm just going to get 2 fibers off the stem. I like to keep them aligned. I rip them right off. Now, when you rip them off, you'll see these 2 little curlies. So this part came off the stem. And these are actually what I use my legs as. You kind of cut the curly parts off and you're kind of left with 2 little, almost looks like legs. So I'm just going to put these in right underneath. And it is kind of tricky to get these perfectly underneath, just like so. Then you can just make a couple nice tight wraps there, and cut out the butt sections, that pheasant tail. Now for our dubbing, I'm just going to be using some black. This is just a rabbit blend, just straight black. And we're just going to build up a little thorax here. Now if you look at real waxworms, they don't really have these legs this big, but I like adding them. It just adds a little bit more lifelike to the fly. It's kind of like a caddis waxworm, I guess. But waxworms do have little legs. They're just not this big. So I'm just going to make a little body here. Thorax. I like to keep some of these a little bit long because once the water gets through them, it just looks more lifelike. So I'm going to get that same pheasant tail. I'm going to grab 2 more fibers off it and just prep them the same. We're going to tie these ones in the exact same as we did the back ones. You can tie these one in at a time. I usually just let my the pressure from my thread pull them under straight. Then we can grab a little bit more dubbing here. Kind of tuck those legs up underneath. Just kind of use my nail and push them back. Just like so. So kind of just sticking out there. Just make some nice tight wraps right there. Now I can throw in a little 5-turn whip finish. Make sure that's nice and tight. I can cut out my thread. So that's pretty much what it looks like when it is done. You can kind of pull this stuff out. And once this is wet, it looks really nice. It looks really lifelike. You can add a a copper bead on there. If you want to tie just kind of like a original waxworm, you can put a copper bead and just use this nymph skin all the way up. I like to add these legs and the kind of the little collar thorax area right here. It just looks a lot more lifelike in the water. Then the last thing I like to do is grab a Sharpie. This is the fine point Sharpie, and I like to put the black dots underneath here. You see waxworms, they have these little black dots. I don't know exactly what they are. I think they might be legs. But it just adds that much more to the look of the fly when it's in the water. You can just pick some of this out if you want. It looks really good once it's wet. So there you have it. Little waxworm for ice fishing. You can tie these all black. You can even tie them kind of like a caddis color if you want to use them for trout. But I just tie them like this, and perch love them. I fish Lake Simcoe a lot, and this is one of my go-to baits for Lake Simcoe. It lasts a long time, unlike a real waxworm. You can only catch one fish on it. I mean, these will last as long as you don't break off or anything like that. So tie a couple up if you're into ice fishing. Try them out. Let me know how you do. Thanks for watching today's video, guys. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you have any questions about the fly or any of the materials, you can just drop that down in the comment section below. If you want to see all the materials I used on this fly, you can check that in the description. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in the next one.